Welcome, everyone, to the Elevate Your Equity podcast, where investors with a special emphasis on couples begin, continue, and deepen their journey to financial freedom together using the powerful vehicle of real estate investing to do it. Today, we've got a one-of-a-kind guest. His name is Mike Angelo. Mike founded the NK Development Group with the desire to help others to find the path to financial freedom through multifamily real estate. And for the last 2 decades, Mike has had roles in executive leadership, technical support, strategic sales for $2 billion organizations in the construction supply business. And Mike's currently a KP on a 60-unit complex in New Mexico and currently in development of a 192-unit complex in Casa Grande, Arizona. And he also holds fractional partnership interest in 437 multifamily units across the Southwest. So that is a pretty awesome resume, Mike. But in addition to that, you are a W-2 exiter as well. We're excited to get into that. So thank you so much for being on today. It's great to have you here. How are you today?
I'm doing awesome. Thank you guys for having me on. It's an honor for sure. And I love talking about the journey a little bit and maybe providing a hair of inspiration, but at least, it's not all roses, right? There's some challenges along the way, but it's been an amazing journey. And again, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. It's great to have you on. So why don't we start at the beginning like we always do? We want to ask you, how did you get interested in real estate investing in the beginning? And what kind of caused that little spark that made you say, man, I've got to do this?
Sounds good. Yeah. So it actually started a long time ago, like back in 2007. I was working a sales job. I did a couple of flips. It was, who knew the timing, right? But I got into the flip business. We did one good one and one really, really bad one that we paid the price for. And my wife, we had just gotten married and she wasn't happy because she was like, hey, we just lost a bunch of money and we had to figure out a way. And everything worked out fine. But that was my dipping my toe in real estate, more than a decade and a half ago, right? Then fast forward to corporate career, went through that whole stuff. And I got to a point in mid 2019, I started a new role. And I was just working like you wouldn't believe. And I realized back of like, what's my why, right? We think about family. And the reason I left my prior role was because I was traveling so much and I couldn't see my little ones grow up. And I think the thing that broke my heart was every time my 2-year-olds would see me just leave, just go outside, she would be like, bye, daddy, right? It broke my heart. So I was like, I got to get out of here. I got to change my path. And so I went to another company that's like, hey, you get to be local, more responsibility, all good stuff. And that was actually the exact opposite. I traveled more, I worked more, I earned more, but I wasn't there to enjoy that, right? So that was kind of the beginning moments of creating that, like, how do I exit? And I had an hour drive to my office. I was starting to listen to podcasts. So it was like Bigger Pockets and, you name them. I don't even know how I tripped up against multifamily, because Bigger Pockets is a lot of single family, start to do a little dabbling in small multi. And I think I found Whitney Sewell, right? Lethbridge Capital. And that he just really resonated. And then I was like hooked, and I'd go home and tell my wife about it, every episode. And she's like, I don't know what you're talking about. So that was June of 2019. And then as we worked towards, Q3, Q4, there was writing on the wall that something was going to happen with my employment. And already told my wife, her name is Zyra. And I told, hey, Zyra, I think something's going to change. She fortunately had just found a new role. She was stay-at-home mom for 5 years. And so raising her kiddos, and she was bored to death at that point. She's like, I got to go back to work. So it was almost like we didn't plan it, but it just worked out, right? So she went back to work, and sure enough, by November, writing was on the wall. I was going to be exiting. My role was basically eliminated. And that day I had 3 interviews to basically take over. And I was like, I don't want to do it. And at that time I had just learned the word syndication, multifamily syndication. I was like, this is it. But then I'm like, how do I get into that? I don't even know, right? All these guys are talking about it, but I didn't understand it. So that was what started it. And then I took the month of December off and I figured out how to do it. And it started with education and really diving in. I signed up for a professional education program. And then I just called every person that was on Whitney's podcast, including Whitney, and then every other podcast guest. I just called them and asked them, because they leave you the information at the end of the call, right? And I just took action and was like, hey, can you tell me a little bit about it? This is what I'm doing. And so a pretty good hit rate, like 90% of the people actually like returned my call, which was amazing.
Wow.
Yeah, amazing.
Mike, I got to give that to you. That is something that not very many people think of. That's really smart. Definitely just got to give you credit. But yeah, keep going, man.
It was actually, what was really funny was there's a gentleman named Bruce Bakerson. I'll give him credit because he's here in Phoenix. He was on Whitney's podcast and he's like, I'll give my info, but no one ever calls me. And he was the first guy I called, right? I was like, hey, you said, right? No one ever calls you. So that really kind of fueled it. And yeah, it was really helpful because it balanced, you get this education out of these programs. There's lots of programs out there, good, bad, and different, but it's a baseline education, right? The real work happens when you go do it. By the end of December, I said, honey, here's what I'm going to do. I have a plan. We've saved up with Dave Ramsey followers. So we had like X amount of savings. I was like, we're good for about a year and change. I have a severance package. Like, we're good. We don't need to worry about money, but I need this time to figure this out. Are you okay with that? So she's like, okay, go do whatever you're going to do. Right. So she didn't ask a lot of questions. She just said, go. And so, yeah, that's really how it started, January. And then, COVID, all good things. COVID is challenging for a lot of folks, but it was a blessing in a lot of ways because got that time to really dig in and figure things out and strike out a whole bunch, right? I think I struck out, I tell people I've analyzed like 700 or 800 deals like in 2020. And I only got to like 50 offers. So you can see the funnel was, narrow, and I lost every one of those, right? Like a couple of best and finals, didn't win those. So not until October of 2020 did we get our first offer approved. Now it happened to be the 60 unit that we actually closed on in May of this year. Long story on that, but sorry, it was a long answer.
No, that's great. I think that paints a whole picture for us, which is fantastic. We were going to get there anyway, but thank you for highlighting all of that. So what I wanted to do, obviously right now you're very successful, but you put a lot of time into all of this, right? You called every single guest on Whitney Sewell's podcast. That's a lot because he's up to like 1,000, isn't he? Or like
he's got a lot. Like I don't know if I did all 1,000, but yeah.
Okay, well, I get it. So, but that's a lot of time. And then you've analyzed. I was doing the math. It's about 2 or 3 deals a day, right? You're doing all of that, and you're getting deal flow. You're talking with brokers. So I know that there's a lot behind. It's easy for someone to say, I'm underwriting 100 deals, or I'm doing 30 deals a month or something. But there's a lot of work behind that because there's brokers, there's all these things, like there's listings and stuff too. But so while this is all happening, you're spending all this time, right, doing all of this. What is happening at home? What's going on? I know that you don't have your W-2, but I know for a fact that when you're doing that much work, you're calling everyone, you're also underwriting deals, you're trying to put this whole syndication education thing together. What kind of impact did that have on your family?
I got to replace, so my wife was stay at home, I mentioned, right? And then she went back to work. And she works from home too. So she's down in the office, right? Still working actually, but it was the best thing that could have happened because I felt like I got to make up for 5 years of not being around.
Yeah.
So I'm stay-at-home dad,
cool.
And then I'm a full-time real estate investor. So home was actually fantastic. I got to take the kids to school every morning, make lunches, and I ended up doing, grocery shopping, cooking, all that stuff while my wife's, buried in the office. So I can't say I loved laundry every single week, but I knocked that out.
You don't? Oh man.
I got it to, here's what I did is systems. I got systems figured out. It's like, okay, laundry's on Mondays. I'm done by like I just had stuff kind of like, to your point, like how did you balance schedule, outlook? I live and die by the calendar. So I actually literally have laundry on my Monday at 10 a.m. time slot.
I'm just got to say right now, like I'm seeing my future right now because for most people that have, that are listening to the show, they probably know that I've left my full-time job as of last Friday. And we have officially switched roles. Now it's my responsibility to do laundry. And exactly what you have said was completely my idea. Like I'm planning on doing all of the laundry on Monday or, whatever day of the week. And then all of our meal prep for the whole rest of the week on like Sunday afternoons or whatever. And so like, I'm already thinking in terms of systems and processes. Anyway,
you got to take notes from Mike.
I know. Luckily it's recorded, so we're all good to go. But anyway,
trial and error for sure. Right. But I think real quickly, you realize, I was an outside salesperson for a long time. So I never had an office. So we were always focused on, you got to be self-responsible. You got to get up, you got to go to work. And so that, 15 years, 20 years of just programming is kind of like, okay, here's what I got to do today. So I didn't need extra motivation. And I never saw it as a burden to do the home stuff because I missed it. I missed out on a lot of that. Again, can't love doing dishes every single day, but that's just part of what you do. So you do it, right?
Yeah.
But having time with the kiddos has been phenomenal. And I just schedule my day. So, hey, 10 to 2 is when I'm going to make broker calls and then I'm going to underwrite. I was pretty diligent with trying to stick to that. And, today was one of those days where I'm fried and I watched a movie from 1:30 to 3:30, right? Nice. And I just was like, and then I went back to work, right? So it's the beauty of being able to do that. And you got to just be disciplined, right? So.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic. So I guess my question for you is, Is your wife getting more involved with any of this? Is she getting more and more curious, or how is that working out? Like, is she starting to ask questions and get curious about how this thing is working, or is she more still leaving that to your arena for now?
I would say, I think I'm drawing her in slowly. So I think it had a lot to do with, hey, once we got our first deal closed and I was like, hey, here's what we actually did, right? We can actually say, hey, we are real estate operators now, right? We're not just faking it until we make it. So that helped. But then now, like, there's been an increase in not just deal flow, but opportunities, right? So raising capital was a challenge. And like, now I feel like money isn't pouring out, but money is coming. And it has a lot to do with that mindset and what you put out there, right? I never would have believed it, right? But it's so true, right? If you feel it and you think it and you put it out there, it does kind of tend to show up.
Yeah.
So to answer that question, she's more interested. I've taken her to a couple meetups, and because I was trying to get her on the show, but slowly and steadily. And I try to give her little nuggets to where, she actually got promoted at work, so she has more responsibility. So I try not to dump too much of this stuff, but I take my excitement and then I go, hey, tell her a little bit about it. And when she asks me more questions, I know that she's at least interested. So we're getting there. We're getting there. Right. The big thing for us is, hey, we're going to get to a point where you could leave that W-2 and we'll be good to go. We got to figure out medical benefits and all the stuff that's important. But we're probably less than a year out, I think, from that. So
nice.
That's
Congratulations.
incredible.
Yeah. And Mike, throughout this journey, and when you were in your W-2, you talked about mindset. When you're in your W-2, how invested were you in it, or was just a paycheck? And what was that impetus of, like you mentioned, the elimination of the position? It kind of lit the fire for you. Can you talk more about that? I'm just so curious about your story.
So I love people, right? I'm a people person. And so building systems and building a process around people was a lot of fun. And so that was my fuel to go to work, right? And go get stuff done. And unfortunately, corporate challenges of here's the budget and here's what you can't do and here's your handcuffs. So go do what we want, what you're saying, but do it with hands tied behind your back. So not awesome, right? And so that was frustrating. And the timing couldn't have been better because it just kept getting more and more difficult as we progressed in that timeline. And so I was starting to get burned out on that. And then it was like, how the heck do I exit? I need to get out of this. But I really genuinely had no idea. I didn't share it, but I had thought about buying a landscape company, a pool company. Some of our old contractors, I had good relationships with the owners, and I knew that they were 60s and they were looking to retire and have a legacy. And I was like, hey, I could buy your company for you. I don't need to build it. You have a customer base, you make good income. It fits with what I need. That was some of my thoughts. And I was like, am I just buying a job? Right. And that's what it ended up being, is being a contractor is amazing, but you're buying a job. And so what could I build that would give us the time back? And that was my biggest thing, is I need that time for money thing, right? We talk about it on a pretty regular basis. I want to be able to take my daughter camping at any given time, or if we want to go for lunch or something. I want to be able to do any and all of that. We're actually planning, I think we're still going to do it. And in spring of next year, we're going to take the kids out, put them in online school, and go live in Nicaragua for 2 months, because they have
nice.
This amazing cohabitat place, and the kids can go surfing on the beach, just really cool stuff. We can't normally do that if we're both, we both have a W-2, and my wife works remote, so she could do it. But we're just in a very fortunate place, but I wouldn't have been able to do any of that stuff in my prior role. And again, income, everyone thinks about income you have a great job. My parents included, right? My parents are born and raised in India, first generation, right? I was born here. And so if you know anything about, Asian cultures, it's you go to school, you get a degree, you go get a job, you get married, all that stuff is prescribed.
Yeah. And it's almost like duty, right? You have to do it.
Yeah.
That's the thing. I totally get that from having conversations with her. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I wasn't a doctor. I wasn't an engineer. Those are the two number one for Indian kids. So I turned out to be a salesman. So if you think about that, I was the stepchild, what's worse than that, right? So, I got a marketing degree, and then I was a salesman, and then I led people. So it was very anti-cultural. My parents were always very, very supportive.
Let me ask you now then, just as a lead on to that, now your parents or your family is seeing what you're doing right now. And I'm wondering, are they asking you questions now, or how has the family dynamic shifted around this a little bit?
So for my parents, we convinced them to move just down the street from us, but my mom actually helps me underwrite. She's helping us up on the accounting front. So she's got a great background in that. They were both retired.
That's awesome.
And so she's been part of our company. So our, NK stands for Nimble Kin. And so just, nimble being, flexible, mobile, and kin being family. My goal was always to build that out. Now, I'm an only child, and it's just my parents, right? But the way I build our team, we're building our team is we're going to operate like a family. And that's the perspective.
I think that's incredible. What you're doing right now is you're setting up a legacy type structure where you've literally got everyone involved in the business. And I can imagine that further on down the line, this is something that your kids will probably end up taking part in, or at least if they want to. That's kind of where I'm thinking this is going. Am I correct in thinking that way?
Look, I hope so. My oldest is 13 and she's 13. So you know how that goes. But I dragged her to a due diligence, right? I dragged her to a due diligence a couple months back, and high level, she wasn't super stoked to be there, but then she kind of got some things started clicking, right? She's like, oh, so I can go do this, which is what I love, but I can still earn income. And I was like, yes, right? So little things are starting to work. And so we were talking about that. They actually invested in, I said, hey, you guys have some funds. They put it into the deal. And so they're going to get passive income at age of 13, right? So not too bad.
Mike, that is so awesome. Your daughters are so lucky. And I want to touch upon what you said earlier about maybe cultural traditions that almost like not necessarily defying or rebelling, but like you're setting an example for a new way of being, right? For your legacy, for your kids. And I just want to commend you because I grew up in that culture as well. And I know how difficult it is to kind of shake that, for reputation, for honor, for all of those things. And to be able to kind of show, the old culture that there's another way is amazing. So thank you for that.
And persevering, right? Because like the family pressure is really real. And at that time, Mike, like it's easier for you to be able to say right now, hey, this is where we are. Like, this is what we're doing. And you've built tools, you have a bigger mindset. But back when you were younger, you may not have had this type of mindset, unless maybe you have developed that at an early age. And so to add on to Sophie's praise for you, I want to also add on the fact that you were able to stick with your path and keep that going. And maybe a follow-up question to that is, how much of that behavior from early on have you carried through to your success today? Is there a little bit of that there?
Maybe a little bit, right? I think, again, traditional household, right? You go to school, and I did all that stuff, right? I got my master's, and so all good. But then in the company I worked for, I was there for 15 years. My plan was to retire there, right? Get as high as I could up the corporate ladder, make lots of good money. And then and I didn't know another way. I think that's part of it is you just don't learn. You don't know that there's other options. And like being an entrepreneur, like, what did that mean? And how can I'm not going to go product, am I going to go create? That's usually where my brain goes. I'm not Elon Musk. I'd love to build rockets and cars, but like, I don't have a product, right? So how do I do it? And so this like, I need to build a team, right? I need to learn some stuff, build a team. And, our product is helping customers, clients have beautiful places to live. And that's amazing. And we're going to build housing now, right? So just a really cool philanthropic perspective that I didn't have before, for sure. It was corporate Kool-Aid, right? Is what I call it. And
corporate Kool-Aid.
Drink it, go retire, and then make sure your 401k has enough so that you can divide by 25 years left over, and all right, we have enough money. Right? Like that's so much of the math that's out there, and the mindset, not the math. But if I could show a few people that, and it's pretty cool. It's been cool now. Like I feel like until we close, there's something that happens, right? Once you like, hey, we actually did this. I had like friends and family come around like woodworks going, hey, like, so what are you doing? Like, and I'm like, I've been telling you what I've been doing, but you haven't been listening, I guess, right? But it's a little bit inspiring to a few folks. So like, wow, I'm really, really proud of you. And even definitely some family members that are like really proud of what you're doing, and they wish they had that. And like, we're not any different. The only thing is I just don't, I'm always a maybe foolishly optimistic person, just who I am, which is a good balance for my wife, who's optimistic, but also very balanced in like pessimism. And I think that's a really key thing, because sometimes you get blindsided by optimism too, right? So we definitely complement each other. And she always the sounding board. Even when I told her to sign up for this education program, it's a mid 5-figure spend, right? Wow. You could buy a really nice Toyota Camry or whatever, but like, she was like, you're going to spend how much? And you just quit your job? And like, like it was all these no's, and they were all very legitimate no's. And I was like, well, look, the first deal, and it'll help us get there faster, was really the logic, right? And in retrospect, it was money well spent, right? But I didn't know 100%. I knew like 96%. You know? So,
that's great.
Yeah. I just have a follow-up question. So Mike, with COVID, of course, like you're hearing now that there's sort of this mass W-2 exodus, right? And so a lot of our listeners will probably hear this podcast and be like, how can I leverage, this? Like, I don't want to go back to my W-2. Like, what would be some advice that you would give to them of like how to start getting into that mindset? What are the like key pillars that you would say that really led to your success?
and I'm not 100% successful. We're on the journey, right? Is the way I like to look at it. But so I'll go off on a tangent for a second. I spoke to a 22-year-old senior today. He's finishing school at ASU. We connected, and he asked me the same question, like, what would you do, right? And I started with finances are so important that you need to know what is your operating cash flow need, right? What do you need to do? If you're a W-2 and you're making X, like, do you need to, there's the FI folks that go all the way down to like nothing. I'm not that guy. We're just not that family. Like when I left, like I still have it on the wall, exactly what we spend every month in cash flow. And we cut out a couple of things, but I like coffee. I make my own coffee. I don't go to Starbucks, but like I'm not cutting down on premium coffee because that's like coffee is life. But there's just little things like what is my cash flow need, right? And then what's our cash flow inbound and what's the delta that we need to get there? And what are the things I can do today? Is there a side hustle? I had a lot of opportunities to go do wholesaling and flipping just to get things going. And in retrospect, maybe I could have done that, but it would have distracted me from this, which I knew was the bigger goal, right? And so I think the thing I would say is figure out what your need is, what that number is, and then work backwards to go, okay, maybe I have some capital I can invest and that'll make up this much. And then what else do I need to do and how long can I survive? I think the Dave Ramsey piece is, and there's folks that love him and hate him, but I'm like, it works. Think about 6 months. I think the average American has like less than 2 months of savings, right? And we were fortunate before I even got the note, we had about a year saved just because I was like, I was dumb. I didn't invest it, but I just had it in the bank. And I'm like, okay, now here's my safety net. Like if everything goes wrong and nothing happens for a year and a half, which is exactly how long it took, we're okay.
Yeah, I love that. Sophie and I, we've had a lot of conversations about Dave Ramsey. And in the beginning, it was really, really hard for her to get on board with that because it felt so restrictive, right? But it seems like this is actually kind of a family thing. I mean, you're posting up your cash flow up for everyone, even for your kids to see, which is fantastic. I think that's such a great idea. This idea that kids aren't allowed to see the parents' finances, that's very outdated. And I think that it's healthy for them to see this thing because it's more preventative. It helps give them exposure to planning and all this. So I applaud you for that. But did your wife and kids, were they on board with this Dave Ramsey thing that you were doing for doing the cash envelopes? And
so we didn't get all the way down to that. We didn't do the actual program. I listened to Dave on my 2.5-hour drive in LA when I was in LA. Right. So I'd go home and I'd tell her, I'd say, hey, these people are like paying off their house and this. And then we never got to the envelope thing. I said, hey, can we just try to budget? Like just try digitally, right? Like you have your B of A app tells you how much you're spending. And I'm like, I think I have a number and then let's just try to semi-stick to it. So we didn't go down that rabbit hole because I feel like we should be more disciplined. We're definitely not on that side of things, but we try to stay within a range, right? The first thing I bought after earnings and acquisition fee was a set of golf clubs. They're cheap. And that's the first thing I bought in 2.5 years for myself. Like everything else has been for the house, right? So like we don't splurge on stupid stuff, but we like to go eat. Like that's our thing. Like we cook really well and then we'll go to a nice place. So like I don't want to shave that budget down. I want to keep that at whatever that number was. Let's be responsible about it. So yeah, it's on the board. The kids talk about it pretty regular basis. And yeah, we have very good. I don't like the word no, by the way.
Right.
I think there's a mental programming on that.
That's a very good model. And I think that for many listeners out there, it seems like that's a very practical thing. And I would say, Mike, that a lot of things that you're saying right now is very practical. So I get the feeling that you are a practical person. So my next question to you, and this is partly actually a selfish question as well, because I want to know how you structure your day. You kind of alluded to it earlier before. It sounds like you live by your calendar. I do the same thing. I'm still kind of dealing with the fallout of like having appointments overlapping from when I had my full-time job to now when I don't. So, but now going forward, I got it all straightened out. But I'm very curious, again, from a selfish point of view, how you structure your day to do all the things that you do with all the underwriting and the current deals that you have going on right now, and then balance with your family. So can you walk us through that?
Yeah. So most of the time I'm up at like between 4 and 5. I hit the gym and I'm back by like 6-ish, and I'm making lunch for the kiddos and getting ready for school. I told you my little one rides her bike, so I ride with her, and it's great. Now she doesn't want me riding with her. She wants me like just to stay home. So we just kind of let her do that stuff. And then, I'm back, have my cup of coffee. So between like 9 to like noon, it's whatever's on the calendar for that day. So usually it's some kind of underwriting. I use Calendly a lot, which I think you guys too. Lifesaver, right? Like trying to coordinate, it's amazing. So appointments come, and then, it's depending on what I have to do for the day. I'll usually plan my week out. So we're in Thursday. Most of next week is already planned. It just kind of happens, like things progress. And so between that and HubSpot, and I use InvestNext for our investor portal, but that had a CRM function to it as well. So any investor follow-up, I just go back through and go, oh, I have some people I haven't touched base with, and I just plan it. Right? I just put it in and plan it. And then you got laundry, grocery shopping, and cooking intermingled between that. And then the evenings are usually karate and taking the kids to school, or taking the kids to karate, and then us. So like today's our breather. Like we're not doing anything today. Monday through Friday, other than today, we're in Friday, and Sundays we don't do it. So it's a full lifestyle, but this job or this career allows you to be very flexible, right? And I couldn't have done that any other way, I don't think so.
Great. Awesome stuff. I'm going to see if Sophie has any other questions to ask.
I'm still just so curious about just your relationship with your wife. Like, what strengths do you think she brings to real estate investing, and how has she really supported you on this journey?
Awesome question. It's a loaded question because I'm going to go back. So we've been together 21 years, 22 years. We met in school, and I'll tell that story for a second because I know we're in short on time. I was an engineering major because that's what all Indian boys do. You got to go be an engineer. And then I went to marketing, but I was partying and doing all the stuff you're not supposed to do. And after meeting her, I realized I'm like, wow, there was just something in her that drove me to be better. Right. And so like she helped me, even though she didn't crack the whip or anything, but she helped me get through school and graduate. Right. It took an extra year than it should have. But that started like her being so supportive. Right. And just me wanting to be a better person for her. And then throughout my career, like, she's always been extremely supportive. Like, hey, we moved to Arizona. We left her family in California and moved here, right? And she was all on board. And and then I'm like, hey, we don't have any family. It's just us. So she's like, I'll be home. I'll take care of the kiddos, and you do your thing. And so it's always been that way for the last 20 something years. And so I think more than almost half our lives we've been together. This was that next leap. Right. And she's like, I know you can do it. And it's never this big hoorah speech. It's like, hey, I know you can do it. Go do it. And that's good enough. That's good enough. Right. Like I'm pretty self-motivated. I just need are you good? Like, right? But yeah, so she's been a huge part of it, even though she's not in the business yet. But she's got some great marketing skills. And my plan is to loop her in once we can have her exit. But she's, today, the way she supports the household is she's the stable cash flow person. Right. And that's critical, really critical, right?
Excellent. So my last question for today is, what is your guys' vision? Where are you guys looking to go for the next 3 to 5 years? Do you guys have like a unit count or a passive income goal? Maybe you can shine some light on that, because I know you're well on your way, but I want to help paint some inspiration for some of our listeners who are maybe in a similar spot to you, or are looking to get in a similar spot to you about a year or two ago.
Yeah, I actually have it on my wall there, but so, the unit count thing is interesting, right? Like, I don't know, a couple thousand units, sure. Really, we want to be at a cash flow position. I don't know if it's appropriate to share a cash flow number, but we live pretty reasonably. But we said, hey, if we can earn, $20K a month. $20K a month sounds obnoxious to some people. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. But like that number, that number would get us to a point where we can go do whatever we want, wherever we want. And that's on the personal side. And then on the business side, to be able to go build. So I told you our family's from India. And one of the things I want to employ my dad to do is take on this filtration project, providing clean water to a lot of the places across India, right? And so that's going to take a couple $1 million, right, at least. And I want to be able to have those proceeds to go, hey, Dad, let's go do this, right? There's obviously lots of needs here, and working actually now with some veterans on our newest project to hopefully provide some housing for them. And so I want to be able to give as much as we can and still earn a good profit for our investors and for ourselves, right? I think there's a very much of a win-win possibility. But I think, I don't know if I completely answered your question, but the time is the biggest thing to be able to do that. And having a certain number makes us be able to do that. And today it's 20, might be 50 later. I don't know. But yeah, we're not all the way there yet, but we'd like to get close to that.
Yeah, that's great. And congratulations on what you guys have built, because when you put your mind to it and you put all the effort in, it seems like it's only taken you a few years to be able to get where you're at right now. And that's really the power of commercial real estate and the power of working in teams, right? Being able to work with credible people, tapping them for advice, and then using their expertise to apply in your own. There's plenty of opportunity and plenty of money and everything out there for everyone. So that abundance mindset, I can really feel you kind of tapping into and wanting to already give back, even though you haven't already gotten quite yet to your passive income goal, even though I know you're well on your way. So thank you for that. Yeah.
Appreciate that. Yeah, it's been good.
So awesome. Cool. Well, did you have anything else you wanted to ask?
No, this has been wonderful, Mike. And I'm so looking forward to all of the wonderful things that you're going to be doing in the future.
We just had our SEC attorney talk a little bit about what you can share, what you can't share. So there's some good stuff coming, right? I've already shared kind of our development project, and we're really excited about that. And what business do I have to be a developer? Well, I just found the expertise, right? I got the team on board to go, hey, I want to do this. Can you show us how? And they're on board. So awesome. Building the team piece is so critical. And we're I think in a year from now, we were telling our folks like, hey, we're building housing, right, from nothing. That's pretty cool if you think about it.
Yeah, that's incredible. And there's so much of a need of that right now, because I think I read an article that said that the United States is short by 1.5 million housing units, whether that's rentals or just purchase. It's a lot of housing supply, and that takes a lot of effort to get new projects built. And people like you that have the skills and the capital to be able to do that is very much needed in this economy. And you guys you deserve to be rewarded for all of that effort. So that's fantastic.
Appreciate that.
So let's jump into the rapid round part of the show. We're going to ask you 5 questions that we ask every one of our guests. So I'm not quite sure if you know what questions are coming, but
I don't. I'll probably stumble. So let's see.
You'll be all right. They're meant to be pretty quick, rapid answers, maybe like 30 seconds a piece, but we'll see what we can do. So number 1 is, what book has had the biggest impact to you on why, outside of the Rich Dad, Poor Dad or the Bible? Because we keep getting those answers.
Yeah, those are not so good. Actually, I'm trying to think. There is, what's a good book? I got a bunch of books in front of me. This one's been, actually, Radical Candor. I don't know if you guys have read that.
No.
My old boss, we led a sales team, and giving good feedback, like if something wasn't right, just being able to quickly go, hey, this is how I feel about it. And so there wasn't this waste of time. And there's a whole science and process, but that's helped me a lot in this job, because we don't have time for fluffing.
I love it. That's great. That's great. Number 2, if people wanted to emulate your success, what's the first actionable thing they could do to follow in your footsteps?
Find your why is one. Create that vision of what that could look like, and that's the starting point, right? Like that's got to be a beacon of like, that's where I want to go, and this is why I need to get there.
Could not agree with you more. I would also add to make sure that you loop in your spouse to that as well, because if you don't have your spouse like in with you on that, you may be going one direction and she may be wanting to go a different one. So I think it's really important to have that.
At one point I was like, that's not my vision.
Yeah, that's right.
I always paint the vision of like, hey, vacation rentals and going wherever you want. Like, do you like that? And she's like, yes. Yeah. I got you. Right. Like, I just spun it around. So
I see. So yeah, this Mike is clearly wiser than me, because he's stuck with basics. And yeah, so all right, that's awesome. Very cool. All right, number 3, what small thing do most people not know about you, Mike?
What's a small thing? I'm an only child.
Cool. All right, that works. Number 4, how do you like to unwind and restore your creative juice by yourself?
The gym now, stretching at the gym. That's been a big life changer for me. So
just to comment on that a little bit, I know that Tom Brady, right? Like, how can you not know Tom Brady? Apparently, stretching is a huge part of his routine. He's all about pliability and flexibility. That's why he can continue doing what he's doing in the game for so long. Because a lot of people, they end up getting stiff muscles, and if they end up like moving in one particular way that isn't natural, then that can injure them and then take them out of the game. So I think that staying in the game with stretching is very wise. So that's good stuff. Number 5, what is your guys' favorite family vacation spot?
Easy. In the Dominican Republic, there's a Nickelodeon themed resort that we've gone to now twice. So little ones love it. We love it. It's adult paradise, by the way, too. So
Cool.
yeah, it's a beach. So we like any beach with all inclusive food and beverages. That's us.
That sounds pretty incredible to me. Yeah, that's awesome. Well, Mike, thank you so much for being on the show. We're happy to have you with us and actually really honored to be a part of your journey. I think it's going to be fantastic for you to look back on this podcast recording a couple of years from now and be like, oh man, I remember those days. It's going to be great.
So thankful for you guys to have me on and be able to share a little bit. And thank you so much I'm glad we got connected. Mike connected us, by the way, right?
Yes, he did.
It's so good to,
that's
to be
awesome.
able to get on here. So
yeah. And so what I wanted to do now is I wanted to give the listeners an opportunity to learn more about you, what you guys have, your offerings, and how people can learn about Mike or what you guys have at your company.
Awesome. Yeah. If you want to get a hold of us, just go to our website. It's probably the best place. It's nkdevelopmentgroup.com. I'm also on LinkedIn. Mike, and Ashish is my middle name. So Mike Ashish Angelo on LinkedIn. Same thing on Facebook. Yeah, those are the two best places to start. You can make an appointment. Love to connect with anyone that's wanting to learn a little bit more about what we do.
I love that. And the giving back. And also, if I'm just going to go ahead and say this right now, but if you guys need assistance with practical tools and mindset tools and productivity tools, I think Mike is your guy. He's definitely got all this stuff dialed in. He's running his business to a T with great balance with his family. And so I think that's something to really be honored as well. So again, thanks, Mike, for being on the show. And for all of you guys who are listening to Elevate Your Equity podcast, we thank you guys for listening all the way to the end. And we really hope that you can like, subscribe, or even comment wherever you're listening to this or watching it on YouTube. That really helps us get in good favor with the algorithm gods, so that way we can get more exposure to more people and also help get people just like Mike, get their ideas out to even more people. And so we really want that to happen. So we want to engage with you guys and get some feedback. So please engage with us. Yeah, I think that's all that I have for today. That being said, this is Derek.
And this is Sophie.
We are signing off for today. Thank you guys. Have a great day.